Ready to explore the latest trends in real estate? What are innovators in building planning for the future? The Ralph Bivins Project digs deep into the minds of key players in the industry and discussions with today's thought leaders. I'm Ralph Bivins. As a journalist who's covered the real estate development industry for decades, I invite you to join me as we probe for new ideas and projects that will be making headlines soon. We love to ask hard questions to interesting people. When you've done over 100,000 interviews, you seem to get enlightening answers. Don't forget to download and review this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your audio inspiration. You can also watch and subscribe on YouTube or visit realtynewsreport.com. Welcome to the Ralph Bivins Project. I'm Ralph Bivins, and we're here today talking with Johnny Cruz. And he's with Robert A.M. Stearns Architects, known as RAMSA. And he's really, he's working on a phenomenal deal here that a lot of people are talking about. It's just hasn't come out of the ground yet, but there's a lot of anticipation about the Ritz Carlton Residences at the Woodlands, which the siding brand that we haven't seen here before. It's not. There's no hotel, but it's got some of those same qualities and of course the marketing firepower and Ritz Carlton and that brand. It has to. You can't do something inconsistent with the brand. But anyway, so it's there. It's being built on the shore of Lake Woodlands, and so Johnny has been working on the design, and just wanted to ask him about tell us about Ritz Carlton at the Woodlands and the residences there, and what are we going to be seeing pretty soon, hopefully?
Well, I think you're going to be seeing something that you've never seen before. That's our hope in the Woodlands. And if I might just backtrack a little bit here, and thank you for the introduction, Ralph. One thing I wanted your viewers to, your listeners to also hear from me is that I'm a partner here at RAMSA and also a native Texan. So as you can imagine, this project is very special and dear to my heart, and we put a lot of work into this for the past couple of years or so, working with Howard Hughes company, and they're excellent, fabulous, aspirational developers, and that's something that's really made this project. It's been tough, but I think when you see it, its built form, I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I just wanted to add that.
They've announced it, then they've sent us some, renderings of what it's going to look like in a couple of years. I talked to Jim Carmen, who's a high executive there in charge of the Texas or Houston area projects, including the Woodlands, for Howard Hughes Holdings, which owns the Woodlands. And he said they're doing kind of like reservations at this time, taking reservations from potential buyers. And he said it's going phenomenal, man. It's just like a rocket. It's taken off. And that's, I'm sure they're happy about that. They're really strong, it surprised them how fast they're getting those reservations in.
Yeah, it's interesting, given today's economic climate with interest rates and so forth, and we are noticing that people are a little more hesitant, I would say, to pull the trigger on the purchase of a house or even make a reservation, let's say. But it is interesting. It's great for Jim Carmen, the Howard Hughes folks, that there's a lot of interest and reservations that they're getting, securing as we speak. And the sales center isn't even open yet. It's still on the boards. It's set to open in, I believe, March of next year. So that's really great news, I would say.
Yeah, I think they'll do well. What Jim mentioned is, he said in the Woodlands we've got a lot of, we got a lot of affluent people, but a lot of them are, aging baby boomers, and the kids they're empty nesters or whatever, and they've they don't need the 6,000 square foot house anymore. You know, they want to be able to travel. They want to, but they don't want, but they love the Woodlands. They got their community there, their friends there, their church there, all this stuff. And so they want to stay. And there's, this is, he thinks this is really, this project is really meeting that market.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And I might say a few things about the project itself.
Yeah.
It features 111 units and 36 different unit types. That's
Wow.
quite a bit. You know, any typical condominium project is essentially almost an extruded box going straight up. And you may have 2 or 3 unit types. Here we feature quite a variety. It's almost like you know, if you think of a neighborhood, beautiful neighborhoods in America that have a variety of houses, large, small, mansions, and so forth. This has it all. It's just a vertical neighborhood, if you will. And so I think that that variety is definitely appealing to these buyers. Um, you know, and as Jim Carmen noted, you know, quite a few of them are already reserved. But that I think that variety makes this a unique project and a special project as well.
Mhm.
And you know, moving from a single family house to a condominium, it's sometimes a leap of faith for some, but
Mhm.
the way we've carefully designed these unit plans, there's something for everybody, right? 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and so forth, penthouses, townhouses. So we have everything. And I think that's helping these people that are considering the Ritz Carlton residences, you know, make that jump. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's what is it they're going to be used to living in a tower with other people. What do you how do you come up with was it 32 different floor plans? That's amazing.
36. Yeah.
36. Okay. Uh, that's that's creative, Johnny.
Yeah.
What do you how do you know like I can see okay different number of bedrooms, things like that,
Right.
and
Right.
then really large. But what else do you do to get that kind of variety?
Well, if you think of the site first, I understand that you walked the site recently, which is great.
Yeah.
Beautiful site, and it's the
Yeah.
last sort of 8 acre parcel within the Woodlands. And I know they were saving it for something special, uh, this project actually. And the way that sort of unfolded is what came out of a few things. First, you know, the site features, it's 8 acres, it features a beautiful peninsula that to the south, juts to the south into Lake Woodlands. To the north is bordered by Lake Woodlands Drive. And it's sort of, it's a little bit sprawled out a bit, 8 acres. And what we did, one of the goals that we set out at the very beginning was to make sure that every single unit had a lakefront view.
Mhm.
Everything essentially is single loaded, meaning all of the corridor, the circulation to each unit happens on the north.
Mhm.
And then all the units are arranged along the south, following the sort of the landforms of that parcel. And also, when you look at or consider uh, the ups and downs of the massing, you know, there's high points, low points, and everything in between. We've introduced several true setback terraces where they're open to the sky above.
Mhm.
That also uh, sort of landed itself to all of these unique types of units. You know, the building has a number of facets as it travels around
Mhm.
the site, and that also played a part in this. But yeah, 36 different unit types is
That's great. That's cool.
it's neat about it.
Yeah, and it's from what I've seen, you know, the renderings. It looks like there's kind of like two towers, a L-shaped thing, but two. Guess they're connected towers, but
Correct,
uh,
correct. Uh, uh, there are essentially two major components. The West Tower, which is up to 15 stories at its tallest point, and an East Tower, excuse me, which is about I think 10 stories at its tallest. And there's a lot of undulation on the skyline as you go up and down. And then in between the two towers, we have the entry lobby, and above that we have a few more units that connect the two towers. So there's also one core per west tower, one core for the east tower.
Mhm.
So there's so that's how we're making all that work. And then beyond that, on the north side, there's a garage structure for the owners as well.
That's good. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, it's kind of like you're there on the peninsula, and you can kind of spread the building out. So some people look out, I guess, to the west over the lake that way, and some will kind of look to the south or southwest. Uh,
Yeah.
it's got a phenomenal amount of vistas coming off this track, which right now tons of trees. If you've never been to the Woodlands, that's kind of one of the marketing things, the livable forest. George Mitchell, when he developed it, said we're not going to just go in, clear cut the trees and pack as many houses on there and plant a bunch of St. Augustine grass lawns. No, he left a lot of the woods. Many portions of the lots are still not just the way they've been for quite a while, hundreds of years, I guess. I don't know, but that's it's. But this is, yeah, it's got the trees, it's got the water, so I guess it shouldn't be that surprising that their sales are
Yeah.
starting off pretty brisk. Pretty brisk.
Interesting point. That's when we were early on doing siting of the building, how it might sit on the land, we were very conscious of preserving as many trees that were there as possible. And we're still looking at that to make sure that there's the least amount of disruption to the existing uh, forest that's already there. So,
Yeah, it's great property. And they told me last week, I think the lake is
huh.
200 acres or something. It's not a little pond,
No,
it's
yeah,
a significant amount of acreage there. Uh, One thing that I picked up in some of the marketing materials that they're using right now, in River Oaks, there was the architect that was pretty famous. River Oaks is the the classic blue chip part of town the Flint people lived in for many years. But the architect that did a lot of the buildings named John Staub, Staub, and some of the notes made reference to uh, how you were influenced by Staub in designing this project or something. Could you give us a little more? She's Everybody's heard his name, but we just not tell us what's going on.
yeah, sure, sure. But before I bring up sort of the John style of influence on this project, I'd like to mention that at Robert A.M. Stern Architects, RAMSA, uh, every one of our projects is different, and it's very much context driven. We're we love to study the history, architectural history of any given um, uh, project, wherever it may be, whether it's here in the U.S., overseas, and so forth. Like for instance, what we design here in New York City will be different from what we design in Miami, Chicago, San Francisco, and now here, Houston. So uh, we love to really dig deep in terms of the history, the essence of what makes a place special, sense of place.
Hmm.
And as we did our research, before we even put, pencil to paper, thought about an idea, a sketch, what might this be? We did quite a bit of research into just the architecture of River Oaks, the Houston area, Texas in general, and even Texas. There's such diversity. San Antonio is going to look a certain way, Houston's a certain way,
That's right.
Dallas, so on and so forth. And John Staub's name kept on coming up, kept on coming up, and as we researched him, um, just his approach to architecture was something that really stood out to me. Of course, he was born in Knoxville, Tennessee. He was trained, or he worked in New York City for Harry T. Lindenberg, which is another classic firm. Did a lot of country houses. I think he really cut his teeth in New York. landed in Houston on, I think they were hoping to open an office there, but they just fell in love, stayed around, and just all of the estates, the houses that he designed, the variety was incredible. I mean, he dabbled in all types of architectural styles, influences. He never stuck to one different thing. So there was a little bit eclectic, that neoclassical French, English Regency, even something out of, I think, Bermuda at one point in time, a house that was influenced by that architecture.
Wow.
So he wasn't afraid to bring those, different influences and bring them to Texas. Another thing that stood out to me about his architecture was just the level of restraint. And like our offices were often thought of as classicist. And when you think classicism in terms of architecture, you think columns and pediments and all these types of things. And while we do use those motifs in some of our buildings, the vast majority, completely different. And our practice is much more restrained in a similar fashion that John's style of his work was. And the building, the design, as it unfolded, we kind of looked at his playbook in terms of his attitude toward, where to put flourishes of ornament or extra attention at the entries, for instance, at the entry of the building, the roof line. He was a big fan of sort of these overscaled chimney elements, chimneys. That was sort of a hallmark of a lot of his designs. And that you'll see in our composition as well. But the building as a whole, the look of it, we think there's some formal qualities, informal qualities. It's stately, but it's also when people see it, comfortable. It's I don't want to say simple, but there's a level of elegance to it and refinement. That we think the proportions of all of the pieces as they come together all work well. And I think there's just a comfort there that you would imagine out of any John Staub house. So that was one of the goals we were trying to get, and hopefully we achieved it. We'll see what the masses say when it's built, but I think we got close.
Well, what we've seen of the drawings is very interesting so far. It really is. I wanted, before I forget, I want to just change gears for half a second. This is Ritz Carlton Residences. Doesn't have a hotel, but it is just part of kind of with the branding. I think has something to do with what's built, and we've got the Hines is doing a Four Seasons Residences there in Lake Austin, I believe. And I haven't seen the site yet, but that's coming. And then this last week, this Satya firm announced they're doing right near River Oaks, St. Regis Residences. No hotel, but they're just using that name. And as they're licensed to do it and all that. And I understand that. But can you tell us a little bit about how these being associated with these brands makes a difference in what's built or what's designed? And it seems kind of like a new deal in the last few years, but it's going like gangbusters.
Oh, sure. But the whole sort of idea of the branded resident isn't a new one. It started here in New York in the 20s with this hotel by the name of the Sherry Netherlands, 1920 when it was opened. This Canadian, Louis Sherry, who was sort of talk of the town, top of high society, decided to open a hotel, and that was the first branded hotel. People equated, his name with this sort of level of luxury, this sort of expectation, and so on and so forth. So it's not exactly a new concept, but yes, it has 80s, 90s, especially into where we are right now. It's really blown up, And it's one thing to live at a luxury condominium, but when you have a brand like the Ritz Carlton, you mentioned the St. Regis, that gives it just a little more panache. And for some of our buyers, if they're used to when they travel, stay in these five-star hotels and so forth, that same level of attention of finishes on the interiors and so forth, that's also becomes part of that experience as your house, as your home, right? But yeah, I have seen a definite uptick in the past 10 to 15 years with more branded residential, without a
I
doubt.
guess it's maybe it's kind of a way to kind of like shorthand it to these people that it'll feel kind of like a Ritz Carlton, and they can get that. You tell them that, and they may not be able to articulate what they exactly feel like when they walk in a Ritz Carlton, but you tell them the brand, and then they, oh, okay, it's a good way to kind of shorthand it into people. And so, oh yeah, okay, now that's I would love living there, whatever. The other new one, well, I get in you've been a speaker at the National Association of Real Estate Editors Conference in the NARI and before, and but I guess when we were in Miami, right next door to the hotel, we were at the Epic Hotel, I think, right next door to it, there's a 66-story building, under construction. Is the going to be condominiums, the Aston Martin condominiums, a car. That is James Bond's car, as you recall. The Aston Martin, the Aston Martin residences, and they're very expensive, millions and millions of bucks, right there on the waterfront. Beautiful. But now I can make the rationale for condos after hotels, but for a car, I can't quite. Why does that make sense? But there's Porsches. There's a Porsche tower. There's other towers. This is like, how in the world?
There's an Armani tower, I believe that's going up there.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Just grab on a brand and you say upscale, I guess. And say this is Porsche. It's not going to be funky. It's not going to be cheap. This is going to be first class.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up those other brands. I find that these days developers are always trying to one up the other. There's always some new gimmick, some new hook that they're trying to bring buyers in. Historically, it's always been the hotel flags that put their name behind the project, and with all of their standards they bring in. We need a cutting garden, we need a cigar room, and whatever. In addition to all of the fitness center, the lounge, the library, but these, I don't know if it's the Aston Martin or the Porsche towers that getting the elevator to your front door, a personal elevator, that's an amazing thing. One of these buildings has a car elevator that brings your car up and parks it in your living room or your private garage. 50 stories up. I don't know if I would ever do
real,
like
man.
that, but
unreal.
The things they're coming up with, it's really astounding.
Yeah, well, some of these guys have plenty of money, and Miami's certainly an upscale market, and it's really strong in this. One thing I did want to ask you about. I know, Seguin, Texas, your career rose. You ended up graduate of master's degree in architecture from Yale University. That's that's you're highly respected and everything. That's really something. I was reading over your some of the other projects you've done. There was one you were involved in called the Heart of Lake High Rise Garden Residences or Suburbs in Xiamen, China. That won major awards and stuff. Can you just tell me a little bit about what was going on there or what you did there?
Sure. Yeah, I worked on a lot of the sort of the lower buildings. Well, actually, it's a huge development. I think some 7 or 8 towers, mid-rise buildings that are maybe 18 stories tall, bar buildings,
Hmm.
villas. And since this was in China, mainland China, we did at the smallest scale even tea houses that sort of dotted each of these residences. And I worked on the clubhouse. There was an entry clubhouse. It was essentially the main lobby, if you will, for the entire development. It was a main arrival sequence, so that was my focus. And we had a huge team on that project working on various phases of it. But it's now largely complete, and I just saw some photography, professional photography of it, and it's outstanding. It looks like it's been there, 100 years.
Hmm.
But that was my involvement with the project. One of the key features is that all the parking, is happened sort of at grade, and all of the development happened one level up.
Hmm.
So your experience going to, walking around the site, going to your whichever tower or townhouse you might live in, is all pedestrian, no cars whatsoever.
Cool.
And it's surrounded by this beautiful lake. So just like the Woodlands, water views for all of the units. But yeah,
You got
really
experience.
interesting project.
You bring
Yeah.
bring Chinese high rises to the wood. A little bit of influence, a little bit of.
There you go. Well, you know what? Every project brings its own, unique learning experience, and there are, lessons learned to try to incorporate in other projects as well.
Well, I know you also were involved in Mandarin Oriental hotels. You did a Mandarin Oriental hotel and probably some others. So you've got the hotel experience.
Yeah, yeah. That's been my sort of area of expertise, resorts, but especially tall tower mixed use development, residential development. It's been my forte for the past. How long have I been here? A long time, 20, 24 years now. So
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been fun.
Thinking about the Woodlands, I know that you're a member of, it's called the Congress of New Urbanism, and that's been about maybe 30 years in the works or something, maybe a little less. But and so just wondering, that's kind of a it's basically like a small town, walkable, uh, be involved in the community, you know, sit on your front porch and your neighbor walks by on a close sidewalk and say hi. You can be involved. Yeah, but it's not new anymore. But I was wondering what happens next with new urbanism. Um,
I think, that's a good question, but let me see if I can answer that a slightly different way. Um, I've always had sort of issues with the CNU, or at least the name of it, Congress for Youth Urbanism. And if you hit it right on the head, it's old now, but it's actually looking at old urbanism that's always been part of our experience. So I wish they would change the name. Maybe I can do something about that. But at any rate, uh, you know, I think they'll still maintain their course. I don't see that changing at all. But I just think as architects, as urbanists, and we are urbanists here at RAMSA, first and foremost, just paying attention of what worked in the past. Uh, People often, the cities that are most traveled, New York City, go to Rome, or there's a fabric there, and you're mentioning walkability. That's also extremely important. But the architecture as well has to be memorable. It can't be some one-off thing. All about the architect. Some self-referential, um, 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 building, but people often gravitate toward things that are familiar, that are walkable, that are beautiful, all those things. And with the Woodlands, we're hoping to bring some of those sensibilities to this project, and not just for the owners. We do hope the Howard Hughes Corporation does well in terms of sales and all that, and we hope that the experience of the owners is delightful, and so forth. But also the people that are not buying there, but that might drive past the site or jog around the southern portion of the site and look up at the building and maybe just stop and pause and just take it in. So that's one of the things that is one of our responsibilities that we take very, very seriously, very deeply. It's not just the bottom line for a developer, but it's also for a city. Hopefully, when the building is done, we will leave a mark for the better. Something beautiful to look at from all vantage points around our site.
It's a key location that people drive over the big bridge on Lake Woodlands Drive, and it's going to be visible to thousands of people a day. It's going to be a landmark in a 28,000 acre project. It has pretty high name recognition, and people know about it all over the world. The Woodlands is one of the big ones, and anyway, we're looking forward to it, and we appreciate you sharing some of your insights with what's been going on, what's been in your process, and your thoughts as you designed it. And really, really appreciate you taking time to talk with me about it. And so thank you, Johnny. Johnny Cruz of RAMSA, a specialist in high-rise residential architecture. And he's really, really something. So thank you. I'm very, very pleased to talk with you today.
Ralph, anytime, and pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, my friend.